Fix your eyes on Jesus. Faith conquers life's storms. It began on a quiet, grassy plain as the spring evening wrapped the crowd in soft light. No one there expected their lives to change. Yet something about Jesus' presence stirred hopes they had kept buried for years. They had seen healings that defied every explanation. They had heard words that felt like God Himself was speaking directly to their hearts. And then came the miracle that no one could ignore: the feeding of thousands from 5 small loaves and 2 fishes. It was simple food, but it tasted like a promise. Whispers spread through the crowd like fire. This is the prophet Moses spoke of. Men, women, young people, everyone shared the same conviction. If he could feed an army with almost nothing, could he not free Judea? Could he not heal every wounded soldier, silence every Roman threat, restore Israel's glory? Their hopes rose quickly, higher than the hills surrounding them, and for a moment, even the disciples believed the time had finally come: a kingdom without fear, a leader without pride, a future without limits. Before we go on, quick reminder: if you enjoy deep, faith-building stories like this, make sure to subscribe so you never miss the next chapter. As the evening settled and the last crumbs were gathered, the excitement in the crowd swelled into a fevered determination. Men with strong opinions and stronger ambitions whispered among themselves, pointing toward Jesus as if they had finally found the answer to every national dream. He doesn't seek honor, so we must give it to him, they reasoned. To them, his humility was not a sign of heavenly purpose but a barrier they needed to remove. Even the disciples, usually cautious, usually thoughtful, felt the pull of that moment. They imagined Jesus seated upon David's throne, the crowds cheering, and themselves standing beside him as witnesses of his glory. It felt right. It felt overdue. After all they had seen, why shouldn't he be crowned? Plans formed quickly. Some urged the people to move at once, to seize him gently but firmly, lift him upon their shoulders, and declare him King of Israel before the priests could interfere. Victory seemed within reach. But Jesus saw deeper than their enthusiasm. He knew the danger of a kingdom built on human excitement instead of heavenly purpose. A single wrong step here would destroy everything he came to accomplish. If this is blessing you so far, remember to subscribe. These faith journeys continue to grow stronger. Before the crowd could act on their plan, Jesus stepped forward with a calm authority the disciples had never seen in him before. His voice was gentle, yet firm, so firm that the excited murmurs fell instantly silent. He told the disciples to get into the boat and return to Capernaum at once. No delay, no discussion, no coronation. To the disciples, the command felt impossible. Their hearts were burning with hope, their minds overflowing with visions of a restored kingdom. Leaving him alone felt like walking away from the future they had prayed for since childhood. They protested, but Jesus' tone left no room for argument. He spoke as a king, not the king they expected, but the one they truly needed. Silently, with heavy steps, they walked toward the shore. They could not understand why he refused the moment handed to him. Why push away the very opportunity that every prophet had pointed toward? Why turn from the crowd that was ready to lift him up? Behind them, Jesus dismissed the multitude. His authority was unmistakable. In a single moment, all their plans, excitement, and ambition melted into quiet obedience. When the last of the crowd drifted away and the shoreline fell silent, Jesus walked alone toward the nearby mountain. The night air was still, but his heart carried a burden deeper than the disciples could imagine. He was not seeking rest. He was seeking strength. Up on that quiet hillside, he poured out his soul before the Father, not for himself, but for the people who had just tried to crown him. And especially for the disciples, whose hopes were built on a misunderstanding that would soon break their hearts. He knew their future. He knew the trial that waited just ahead. He knew how deeply their faith would stumble when they saw him rejected instead of enthroned. He prayed for them in earnest prayers soaked in longing and love, in pleading for their spiritual sight. He asked the Father to keep their hearts open, to protect them from the darkness that pride and ambition would bring. He knew they were not ready for what lay ahead. Their dreams still clung to earthly glory, not heavenly purpose. While Jesus prayed, the disciples drifted farther from him, not only on the water, but in their thoughts. The disciples did not leave the shore immediately. They lingered, hoping Jesus might change his instruction and join them. But as darkness settled fully over the lake, they finally pushed off. The gentle waves beneath them did nothing to calm the storm rising inside their hearts. They rowed in silence at first, each man wrestling with disappointment. They had just witnessed one of the greatest miracles of their lives. Thousands fed from almost nothing, clear proof of divine power. Yet instead of advancing his mission, Jesus had withdrawn. To them, it felt like a step backward. Their minds began to churn with questions they dared not speak aloud. Why didn't he let them crown him? Was he truly the deliverer they believed him to be? Why didn't he save John the Baptist? Why allow enemies to insult him? Little by little, unbelief slipped quietly into their thoughts. The joy of the miraculous day faded, replaced by impatience, confusion, and wounded pride. They forgot the blessing they had just received. Their hearts grew heavy and unsteady. And while they battled their thoughts, a storm they could not see was gathering speed across the lake. The storm did not announce its arrival. One moment the lake was calm. The next a violent wind swept across the water and struck the boat with fierce force. The disciples, startled out of their troubled thoughts, grabbed the oars and fought to steady themselves. But the waves rose higher, darker, stronger. Every man in that boat understood these waters. They were fishermen by trade. Yet this storm felt different. It felt targeted, personal. The perfect day they had experienced just hours earlier seemed like a distant memory. Lightning flickered across the sky, revealing faces drained of courage. They were exhausted not just physically, but emotionally. The more they rowed, the farther the shore seemed. They were being pushed away from the very place they expected to meet Jesus. Fear overtook pride. Doubt replaced ambition. Their earlier arguments vanished. Now, all they wanted was to survive and to see Jesus again. Hour after hour they battled the storm until the fourth watch of the night, the darkest moment before dawn. Their strength was gone. Their confidence was gone. Even their hope felt thin. Yet unseen by them, the one they longed for was watching. While the disciples strained against the storm, Jesus had not forgotten them, not for a single moment. From the quiet height of the mountain, his eyes followed the small boat tossed by angry waves, every wind that pushed against them. Every moment their hearts trembled. He saw it. He knew exactly where they were and how desperate they felt. Their fears were real, but they were never alone. The storm that frightened them did not frighten him. The darkness that confused them did not confuse him. He watched with the tender attention of a mother watching her child take its first and certain steps. He knew when their self-confidence finally broke. He knew when their pride dissolved into humility. And he knew precisely when their hearts whispered the first honest prayer of the night, "Lord, please help us." That was the moment he had been waiting for, not to punish them but to teach them, to free them from the belief that they could succeed by their own strength, to show them that his presence is not limited by distance, darkness, or danger. The waves could not hide them. The night could not conceal them. His love could not lose them. Just when the disciples believed all hope was gone, a faint gleam of light cut through the darkness. At first, they thought it was part of the storm foam on a wave, a flash of reflection. But the light grew steadier, shaping itself into a form their minds could not accept. A figure, walking on the water. Terror seized them instantly. Their hands slipped from the oars. Their voices rose in fear. Exhaustion blinded them to the truth standing before them. The very one who came to save them was mistaken for a threat. The storm outside had shaken them, but the storm inside had distorted their sight even more. Jesus walked toward them, steady and calm, as if the waves were as firm as stone under his feet. Yet he acted as though he would pass them by, not to ignore them, but to awaken their longing to call out to him. And they did. Their fear pushed aside every doubt, every disappointment. "Master, help us." Then came the words that cut through wind and fear alike. "Be of good cheer. It is I, be not afraid." The voice they knew, the presence they trusted, the hope they had forgotten. The moment the disciples recognized Jesus, joy broke through the storm like sudden sunlight, but no one felt it more intensely than Peter. His heart leaped with bold faith, and before he could think twice, he called out, "Lord, If it is truly you, ask me to come." And Jesus answered with a single word that carried both power and invitation, "Come." Peter stepped onto the water onto what moments ago threatened to destroy them, and as long as his eyes stayed on Jesus, every step was sure. It was a moment he would never forget, a moment where faith felt stronger than fear. But then, a small shift, a glance backward, a hint of self-satisfaction. The wind howled louder, and a wave rose between him and the Master. In that brief instant of distraction, his confidence melted, fear rushed in, his footing vanished. Peter began to sink. Yet even as the cold water closed over him, he cried out the prayer heaven never ignores, "Lord, save me." Immediately, without hesitation, Jesus reached out, took hold of his hand, and lifted him up. Not with anger, but with a gentle question that carried wisdom. "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" With Peter safely beside him, Jesus stepped into the boat, and something remarkable happened. The wind stopped at once. The waves settled. The storm that had threatened their lives moments earlier vanished as though it had never existed. In its place came a deep, quiet peace that wrapped around the disciples like warm light. But the calm around them was nothing compared to the calm rising within them. Everything clicked. Everything made sense. The long night of fear, doubt, disappointment, and pride had led to this moment, this revelation. They bowed before him, tears mixing with the gentle spray of the lake, and whispered the truth their hearts could no longer deny. "Truly, you are the Son of God." The lesson was complete. Jesus had revealed his power, but even more, he had revealed their need. They realized that confidence without dependence leads to sinking, that storms do not mean his absence, that faith grows when human strength fails, and that looking to him is the only safe way to walk through anything, wind, waves, or life itself. As dawn stretched across the sky, the boat reached land instantly, carried by unseen hands. Their journey was over, but their understanding had just begun. If this has blessed you, subscribe so you never miss a message that strengthens your walk with God.